unless they speak to you. Yes, and give me the return tickets. You will be losing them." The boy surrendered the tickets, but felt a little sore. After all, he had found the way to this place. It was hard first to be disbelieved and then to be lectured. Meanwhile, the rain had stopped, and the moonlight crept into the omnibus through the cracks in the blinds. "But how is there to be a rainbow?" cried the boy. "You distract me," snapped Mr. Bons. "I wish to meditate on beauty. I wish to goodness I was with a reverent and sympathetic person." The lad bit his lip. He made 100 good resolutions. He would imitate Mr. Bons all the visit. He would not laugh or run or sing or do any of the vulgar things that must have disgusted his new friends last time. He would be very careful to pronounce their names properly, and to remember who knew whom. Achilles did not know Tom Jones, at least so Mr. Bons said. The Duchess of Malfi was older than Mrs. Gamp, at least so Mr. Bons said. He would be self-conscious, reticent, and prim. He would never say he liked anyone. Yet, when the blind flew open at a chance touch of his head, all these good resolutions went to the winds, for the omnibus had reached the summit of a moonlit hill, and there was a chasm, and there, across it, stood the old precipices, dreaming, with their feet in the everlasting river. He exclaimed, "The mountain! Listen to the new tune in the water! Look at the campfires in the ravines!" And Mr. Bons, after a hasty glance, retorted, "Water? Campfires? Ridiculous rubbish! Hold your tongue! There is nothing at all." Yet under his eyes a rainbow formed, compounded not of sunlight and storm, but of moonlight and the spray of the river. The 3 horses had put their feet upon it. He thought it the finest rainbow he had seen, but did not dare to say so, since Mr. Bons said that nothing was there. He leant out, the window had opened, and sang the tune that rose from the sleeping waters. "The prelude to Rheingold?" said Mr. Bons suddenly. "Who taught you these?" He, too, looked out of the window. Then he behaved very oddly. He gave a choking cry and fell back onto the omnibus floor. He writhed and kicked. His face was green. "Does the bridge make you dizzy?" the boy asked. "Dizzy?" gasped Mr. Bons. "I want to go back. Tell the driver." But the driver shook his head. "We are nearly there," said the boy. "They are asleep. Shall I call? They will be so pleased to see you, for I have prepared them." Mr. Bons moaned. They moved over the lunar rainbow, which ever and ever broke away behind their wheels. How still the night was! Who would be sentry at the gate? "I am coming!" he shouted, again forgetting the 100 resolutions. "I am returning! I, the boy!" "The boy is returning!" cried a voice to other voices, who repeated, "The boy is returning!" "I am bringing Mr. Bons with me!" Silence. I should have said Mr. Bons is bringing me with him. Profound silence. "Who stands sentry?" "Achilles." And on the rocky causeway, close to the springing of the Rainbow Bridge, he saw a young man who carried a wonderful shield. "Mr. Bons, it is Achilles, armed." "I want to go back," said Mr. Bons. The last fragment of the rainbow melted. The wheels sang upon the living rock. The doors of the omnibus burst open. Out leapt the boy, he could not resist, and sprang to meet the warrior, who, stooping suddenly, caught him on his shield. "Achilles!" he cried. "Let me get down, for I am ignorant and vulgar, and I must wait for that Mr. Bons of whom I told you yesterday." But Achilles raised him aloft. He crouched on the wonderful shield, on heroes and burning cities, on vineyards graven in gold, on every dear passion, every joy, on the entire image of the mountain that he had discovered, encircled, like it, with an everlasting stream. "No, no," he protested. "I am not worthy. It is Mr. Bons who must be up here." But Mr. Bons was whimpering, and Achilles trumpeted and cried, "Stand upright upon my shield." Sir, I did not mean to stand. Something made me stand. Sir, why do you delay? Here is only the great Achilles, whom you knew." Mr. Bons screamed, I see no one. I see nothing. I want to go back." Then he cried to the driver, "Save me! Let me stop in your chariot. I have honored you. I have quoted you. I have bound you in vellum. Take me back to my world." The driver replied, "I am the means and not the end. I am the food and not the life. Stand by yourself as the boy has stood. I cannot save you, for poetry is a spirit, and they that would worship it must worship in spirit and in truth." Mr. Bons, he could not resist, crawled out of the beautiful omnibus. His face appeared, gaping horribly. His hands followed, one gripping the step, the other beating the air. Now his shoulders emerged, his chest, his stomach. With a shriek of "I see London!" he fell against the hard moonlit rock, fell into it as if it were water, fell through it, vanished, and was seen by the boy no more. "Where have you fallen to, Mr. Bons? Here is a procession arriving to honour you with music and torches. Here come the men and women whose names you know. The mountain is awake, the river is awake. Over the racecourse the sea is awaking those dolphins, and it is all for you. They want you." There was the touch of fresh leaves on his forehead. Someone had crowned him. From the Kingston Gazette, Surbiton Times, and Rains Park Observer. The body of Mr. Septimus Bons has been found in a shockingly mutilated condition in the vicinity of the Bermondsey Gas Works. The deceased pockets contained a sovereign purse, a silver cigar case, a bijou pronouncing dictionary, and a couple of omnibus tickets. The unfortunate gentleman had apparently been hurled from a considerable height. Foul play is suspected, and a thorough investigation is pending by the authorities. The End of The Celestial Omnibus by E. M. Forster.